Most people think wealth comes from earning more money or finding that perfect investment. But the truth is, the real foundations of wealth are built on habits, the kind that nobody really talks about. Today I want to share 3 overlooked habits that quietly build wealth and change everything when you practice them in your life. I'll be sharing real life stories that will help to make these habits very relatable and applicable in your life. Now, if you like the sound of that, take a moment to please hit that like button and react in the comments as you watch today. Now, having awareness of a habit is one thing. Turning it into a system for creating wealth is quite another. We've been exploring this topic deeply. Everything from looking at the latest scientific research on small changes you can make to build wealth, to interviewing real people who've built wealth to better understand the repeatable actions they took. So stay tuned, guys, for a big announcement we're going to be making next week. Cannot wait, where we'll reveal something we've been working on that will help you create a habit system to make wealth building inevitable. Now, watch this video until the end, where I'll be sharing more about this particular thing. If you're new to our channel, my name's Ken of the Humble Penny and Financial Joy Academy. I'm a chartered accountant, a former chief financial officer, a financial coach, as well as a business coach. Now, together with my wife, Mary, we are founders of the Humble Penny and Financial Joy Academy. Also, Sunday Times best-selling authors of our debut book titled Financial Joy, a 10-week plan to help you banish debt, grow your money, and unlock financial freedom. If you'd love to learn more, I'll link below, as well as above. Feel free to go and check it out. All right, let's just dive straight in. Now, habit number 1, I love this one, is the habit of engineering your own luck. Now, wealthy people don't just wait for opportunities, they create them. They do it by networking, learning new skills, experimenting, and putting yourself in those right rooms. By doing this, you dramatically increase the chances of being lucky, quote unquote. The truth is, luck is often just preparation meeting opportunity. Now, here are 3 real life stories that perfectly illustrate this, followed by a 4th story of my own journey applying this very habit in my own life. All right, so the first story I'm going to call Richard Branson and the Paper Aeroplane. Now, I heard this story from a friend of mine whose name is Simon Alexander Ong. You might know him as well. He's a YouTuber, speaker, author, and all those various things. You can look him up on YouTube, and do make sure you follow and subscribe to his channel as well. So he told his story because he was actually in the room when it happened. So the story goes that Richard Branson, when he published his book, I believe was called Losing My Virginity, when he published this book, he had a book launch event. Now, during this book launch event, they had an intermission, right? So imagine the scene. There are lots of people in the room, and there's this, like a stage where, the front be where people are talking, where Richard Branson is speaking to everybody. And during this intermission, someone did something that really demonstrates how amazing it is for you to do something unusual to create your own opportunity. This person made a paper aeroplane. On this paper aeroplane, they wrote down, a pitch for their business, and they threw that paper aeroplane towards Richard, right? And it landed on him. And he, picked this paper aeroplane up and opened it up, right? And to his surprise, it was a pitch that somebody was making to Richard. Richard loved the boldness of this unusual approach of reaching out to him amongst everybody else, that, he said to him that he would take his idea, his pitch, and he will speak to his team, and they will definitely come back to him, whether the answer is a yes or no. But he'd established a personal connection with Richard Branson. What was interesting was, I heard about this story whilst I attended an event only yesterday, an event called Ideas Fest here in the UK. And whilst this story was being told, notice, pay attention, right? Here's Simon Alexander Ong telling this story. He's on the stage. I'm in front, front row, because I'll tell you my story in a minute. He's there telling the story, and next to him is a guy called Simon Squibb, who I'm going to come to in a moment. And whilst they're telling this story, this is so interesting, the room's packed full. Somebody in this event I'm in, whilst hearing the story, had made a paper aeroplane and written down his business pitch real quick and threw the paper aeroplane towards the stage. So this is like a story within a story, right? So I'm there at the front row and I filmed all of this. In fact, whilst we're editing this video, we can maybe put a clip for you guys to see. So you can kind of see like this happened in real life. And I'm there in front and I'm filming this myself. This is my own footage. Everyone's shocked and they pick up this paper aeroplane, they hand it to Simon Squibb. And of course, this opens a window of opportunity for the person who threw it because he got invited to come on a live podcast. And of course, there begins a relationship. So the point I'm making here is that the wealthy find ways to get ahead by doing unusual things. They're not waiting to play the rules that everybody plays. They're not waiting to say, oh, line up, follow this order, this is what you must do. And then they're waiting for those usual channels. They do not do that. They find ways of engineering their own opportunities, creating their own luck. That's story number one. Now, story number two, I'm going to call this one Simon Squibb trying to meet Richard Branson. Now, this story, again, was told by Simon Squibb himself. And I was there when he was telling this story. And it really, really inspired me to go further in alternative ways of achieving certain goals we have. So here's his story. So he's super well known and you'll likely know him. He has millions of followers all over all the social platforms and he does amazing work. Now, he wanted to reach out to Richard Branson. So he thought, hey, I've got all these followers. So I just need to DM Richard and hey, he would look at my socials. He would see I have millions of followers and therefore he would respond. And of course, it went crickets. Richard Branson did not respond. They tried all the various traditional routes, but not very much happened. And then he said, Simon Squibb is telling this story, right? And I'm in the front row at this event and I'm listening to him. And then he says, he told one of his team members the challenges that they're having trying to reach Richard Branson. And one of his team members came back to him later and said, hey, he said his girlfriend is air hostess and works on an airline, and Richard Branson was going to be flying on a particular flight that she's working on, right? And so Simon Squibb's team member went and booked a ticket for himself, the staff member for himself, and not only booked an economy flight, but booked the upgrade to the upper class where Richard Branson would be sitting. And what he then did was he sat himself down near the toilet, so at the back near the toilet, within the upper class section, because his idea was, since Richard is on this same section, at some point during this flight, he would need to get up. He's a human being. He would need to get up and go and use the toilet. So he sat himself down for 8 hours until, of course, pretending to work on his laptop, until at one point, Richard Branson got up and walked back towards the toilet. And he's walking back towards the toilet. He sees this young man working his laptop. And before the guy even opened his mouth to say anything, Richard Branson looked at him and said, hey, young man, what are you working on? And that became the door that opened. Notice how this took some unusual thinking, some unusual planning for this to become a reality. And this is how, according to Simon Squibb, this is how he then established this relationship through his staff member, and then they've started to work with Richard Branson and the Virgin Group, and so on and so on. The third story I've got for you guys is about Steven Spielberg. Now, when I looked up this particular story, I was so astonished to learn that Steven Spielberg, who is a Hollywood royalty, filmmaker, done some of the biggest films in the world, Steven Spielberg wasn't actually very good academically at school. And he didn't really get the grades he needed to get to the university that he wanted to get to. But something happened when he was in high school. He basically went on a tour of Universal Studios. And while they were giving the tour at Universal Studios, they had a break, like a loo break where you go to, use the restrooms and what have you. Steven Spielberg actually went to the restroom and hid in the restroom. He hid in there. And the people who were doing the tour then carried on with everybody else. And he stayed there. Once they'd left, he came out and guess what? He started mingling with everybody else within Universal Studios. And from the research I did, he told his story himself. He then got in touch with the librarian in Universal Studios, who then got him a special pass for him to begin to go through Universal Studios and speak to people. Bear in mind, this guy didn't go through the traditional channels. He's going through a very unusual pathway. And as a result of doing that, he ended up staying almost for the rest of his summer holidays, going in and out of this area, connecting with the necessary people that would then help to establish his career in Hollywood. Now, all these examples have a lot in common. I'd love you to react in the comments as you're listening to these. What is it about these stories that has led to these people's success? What's speaking to you? Now, I want to share my own lived experience of this because I also believe that I've had to engineer my own success to get to where I am. And I'll use a real life example related to this event that I went to. So I went to this event that I think I said earlier was called Ideas Fest. I was told about this event, never been before, but the one thing I thought about straight away, I looked at a list of people who were going to speak, and there were the people I wanted to meet ultimately. Some of them were Simon Squibb, who I mentioned, Daniel Priestley, and a few other people that I'll mention in a minute. What I decided to do, I said to Mary, I'm going to book this event and go to it. So I booked, I got ready, got our kids ready for school. Early morning, like 5 o'clock in the morning, I got in the car because a London strike 2 days ago, or yesterday, it's a London strike on the tubes. So I decided to drive there instead from Kent all the way it took hours to get there. And, but my goal, and this is the key bit related to wealth building, my goal with going to this event was to establish important relationships that could change the trajectory of what we're doing in the future. Who knows, right? So I had the plan of taking along one of our books, so Financial Joy. I took 5 of them, actually, and I would sign these books. And whilst I was driving to this event, I was rehearsing what I would say to each one of these people. I was visualizing. When I meet Simon Squibb, what would I say to him? How would I introduce myself? When I meet Daniel Priestley, what would I say to him? How would I introduce myself? When I meet all these various people, what would I say to them? So a key thing I'm trying to share here is that the journey of wealth building requires you to do very unusual things. And of course, I got there and I took some tips from my friend, Simon Alexander Onk, who I've gotten to know in the last year. And again, that's a whole different story about how we met. And one of the tips I got is get to these events early. So I got to the event early, got myself a front row seat, and I was ready. So that meant that after each speaking, so I had 5 books and I gave all 5 books to 5 people. One was Simon Squibb, Daniel Priestley, Piers Linney, I'm forgetting now some of their names. Say Lottie White was the other. And the 5th person was Rory Sutherland, okay? So I had to attend each person's talk, find my way to the front row seat, and then this is the key bit. This is the bit where you have to do things unusually. When they were saying to everybody, because when these people finish speaking, they kind of whisk them off, right? There's all this staff members or security kind of taking them out to the back. I was determined that I've come all this way. There's no way I'm not gonna get to speak to each one of these people that I'd come to see. And so as soon as they took them away to the back, I basically followed, right? And it's so interesting. I should probably share a bit more. But I went out there, introduced myself, got chatting to them, and very kindly said to each one of them that, look, your work's amazing, been following you for ages, really appreciate what you're doing, just want to show love because you've shown us love through your work over the many years, and here is a gift for you so you can get get to know our work and that sort of thing. So for me, it was about trying to establish a relationship, see these people in person, they see me in person, and there's something magical that happens when you meet people in person. When you are in that room, they can hear your voice, you can hear their voice, you can look them in the eyes, they can look you in the eyes, and you can shake hands, okay? That is a deeper level of relationship that I think people who build wealth over time, or the wealthy over time, use to their advantage. Like, for example, I'll give you a real classical example at this event. People were pitching their businesses. People were getting funding, promises of funding, promises of operational support for their businesses. People were being introduced to CFOs of, here's my CFO, speak to that person, speak to my partner, speak to that person. All of this was happening because people were in the room. And if you were not the kind of person who was open to taking a risk to create your own opportunity, you would have just completely missed out. And because I went there and I took that risk and I actually put myself out there, the doors, by God's grace, are beginning to open even more. Okay, habit number 2 is the habit of stubborn consistency. Okay, so wealth building isn't glamorous. It's showing up over and over again, investing month after month, creating content that, no one's watching, sticking with a plan when everyone else is chasing all the shiny objects, or pushing on when no one believes in you. Stubborn consistency compounds over time. This is what I've noticed and learned. And that's where the magic really happens. Here's a real life story. I mentioned Lottie White earlier, who is a great example of this. She is the co-founder of MyoMaster. Now, Lottie White, who you might have seen on Dragon's Den, raised £1 million towards her business. But here's the key bit. She raised it after 300 rejections. As a young woman who comes from an ethnic minority background, she got rejection upon rejection upon rejection. Just think about that for a moment. Imagine you are trying to achieve a particular goal. You're approaching lots of companies, individuals, high net worths, venture capital firms, all these various organizations, and one after the other, they are constantly rejecting you. They're saying, no, you're not good enough. No, we're not giving you the money. No, we don't believe in your business. No, we don't trust your products. No upon no upon no. And this is the bit that really, really spoke to me listening to Lottie. It's this idea of this stubborn consistency, believing in yourself, even in the face of people saying, no, we don't believe in you. No, we don't think you're good enough. Imagine that was you. Let's be real. What would that do to you? Most people will give up. They'll just go, that's it. It's not, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm being rejected again and again. But it takes stubborn consistency to keep creating success and eventually building some wealth. I spoke to Lottie yesterday and she mentioned, listening to her talk, again, another one I attended, she mentioned that this year her business is on schedule to make £10 million in revenue, which I think is absolutely astonishing. She obsesses over stuff that most people would ignore. For example, taking customer service calls as a CEO and listening to the pain points of her customers. She obsesses over things like meta advertising and how to better optimize her ads to get a better return on her investment. Rather than wasting time, say, watching TV, for example, she feels she has something to prove to the world. And in many ways, she does. And she also said that this need for success actually comes from that trauma. That trauma is being used effectively as a fuel for that stubbornness to then create that success that she is seeing materialize today in her life. For me, this is one of the most powerful aspects of this habit. Do you have that stubbornness? What problem are you trying to solve in the world? Even if people don't believe in you, it's about believing in yourself and continuing to push on. Provided you are serving somebody, you're serving customers, you're serving the world, and you're giving back through solving a problem, then eventually that stubbornness should open the right doors. Habit number 3 is the habit of bouncing back. Now, setbacks in life are inevitable, whether it's a failed business, a bad investment, an unexpected expense, or your career ending, for example. Here's an unusual example, again, from this event. One of the speakers at this event was a lady who used to be part of a girl band called Atomic Kitten years ago. And she shared how she basically had this incredible career, or it looked incredible from the outside. But at the same time, she then went on to have a child and went through, postnatal depression. And as a result of that, her career basically ended. And she found herself in this position whereby she was left effectively with this, a big house with lots of bills to pay, with a child, but with no career and no job or income. The question is how do you even begin to recover from something like that? Just try to put yourself in her shoes, for example. All the people she had in her life who she thought were, friends, basically stopped showing up or stopped calling. They were all there because of the glitz of success and, of having a high profile career and that sort of thing. For her, it took starting all over again with small things in her life for her to begin to recover. And the lesson here is that when life pushes you to the edge, you can either give up completely or you can find that inner strength that you didn't know you had. For her, it took taking some time out, with the support of the right people, certain loved ones. She started to rebuild her life gradually. And recently, she said she had gone on to launch her own independent record label. So a key message here is that people who build wealth treat recovery as a habit. They don't just stay down, they reframe the setback and learn the lessons from it. And gradually, they move on a lot stronger. Resilience isn't just a trait, it's something you can practice also as a habit. Now, to conclude, these 3 habits might seem simple, but when you practice them, they quietly begin to transform your financial life. And here's the exciting part. These are just a handful of wealth habits that Mary and I have been studying deeply behind the scenes. Like I mentioned before, we've been working on a secret project and we can't wait to reveal it to you guys. We're sharing not only more about these habits, but also unique frameworks we've created to make wealth building effortless and inevitable in your life, no matter your background, your ethnicity, and so on. This is just the beginning, and we cannot wait to reveal what we've been created. So do please make sure you stay tuned. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you really enjoyed this video, and while you're there, please hit that like button. I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments. Which of these 3 habits did you relate to the most? Comment with habit 1, habit 2, or habit 3. Jump in the comments and let us know. Don't go anywhere. Check out this next video over here titled The Shocking Truth About UK versus US Wealth by Ethnicity. Very insightful research. Head over and check it out. Thanks again for watching, guys. And as always, in all things, be thankful and seek joy. Take care and bye for now.